welcome to episode 49, the one-year anniversary show of the Midwest Angler Podcast. As always, Scott Sturman and Matt Deitch. And Matt's coming through with the sound effects.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. 1 year, we made it.
Round of applause. The crowd can't believe that we made it a year. I can't believe that we made it a year.
But we did.
Yeah, that is too good. Too good. No, thank you all to everybody who's tuning in today, and especially the ones that have been with us all 49 episodes.
Always providing us the feedback and
right,
just giving us the criticism that we need and helping us along the way the whole time.
Absolutely. We've got a really cool episode. Every single week I say, man, we've got a really cool episode, because we do. I truly believe that the people that we've had on are all, pioneers and whatever. But we've got the man. We're going into ice fishing, and we've got the man today.
That's right. If you've ever ice fished before, ever thought about ice fishing, even if you don't ice fish, you know fishing, you probably know this guy.
Right. He is the absolute pioneer, Mr. Ice Fishing, the Godfather of Ice Fishing, Dave Genz. We've got him on the show today, and I can't wait.
No, neither can I.
Let's go. Hey, Dave, are you there?
You bet.
How's it going today?
Well, it's going good. Just got back from the North Country, getting some ice fishing in.
How was it?
We had a good day yesterday. We were fishing panfish in actually deeper water, 29 to 30 feet of water.
Oh, wow.
And biggest crappie was 14 and a half inches. The biggest bluegill was 10. But, of course, there's plenty of smaller fish.
Oh, yeah. How's the ice looking up that way?
We had about 5 to 6 inches where we were. And I was up on Thursday north of Grand Rapids. We had 6.5 inches on that lake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, Dave, to start us off, where did you grow up and how did you get into fishing?
Well, I grew up here in St. Cloud, Minnesota, where I live now on the Sauk River, and I'm the baby of the family. My brothers and sisters are, 10 to 12 years older than me. So when I grew up, my dad didn't work in the wintertime. He was a road construction worker, and so he had quit deer hunting. So that meant we started ice fishing early, and it must have rubbed off.
Did you do a lot of open water fishing then, or mainly ice fishing?
Well, my open water fishing, I had a river in my backyard, so I grew up playing down by the river every day. But my dad was gone through the summer, so he wasn't. My grandpa would live next door. He'd take me fishing once in a while, but a lot more of my time was spent ice fishing than it was summer fishing. Right
on. Now, you're credited with coming up with the portable fish house. How did that come about?
Well, the flip over fish houses, that is what we started. My dad and my uncle, again, they didn't work in the wintertime. They'd go up to Mille Lacs Lake every day. What I mean by every day, they'd leave noon one day and they'd come home noon the next. How could Mom be mad? I'm home every day.
Right.
That's right.
I'm going to start using that.
And, this was back in the 50s I'm talking about here. And they had a 1952 Buick Roadmaster, and they had this big straight 8 engine, and they had a tiny little trunk in the back. So they had to build a couple fish houses that fit in the trunk. And my uncle was who actually built a little fish house that flipped over like the current flip over models do. We bent them around a 55-gallon drum, and the sled was a lot smaller because you could only fish with one line then with a bobber on it. So how much room do you need in there?
Right.
It was just a matter of keeping out of the weather and watching your bobber and stay warm. And I said they'd go up every day. They'd leave at noon. They'd get up to Mille Lacs Lake. It's a couple-hour drive. So, 2 or 3 o'clock, they'd be out on their spot, and they would go by our big house first and light the stove and warm it up in there. And then they'd go fish wherever the best roomer was, where the resort owner was plowed a new road. And they'd fish there till, a little after dark, and then they'd go back to the big house that was usually set on some rock somewhere, and they would fish through the night, have something to eat, fish through the night, get up in the morning, go back to where they fish the evening before, and then at 10 o'clock they would pack up and go home.
Now,
So,
go ahead.
yeah, so, they were really dedicated to fishing.
Yeah, I'd say so. Now, was there a lot of people that would, like, see them out there with their flip over shack and be like, "What are these crazy guys doing?"
Well, no, there were quite a few people around, but even them, mobility wasn't part of what they were doing.
Right.
It was, they would go out and dig a hole. Well, they were chopping holes through the edge with a chisel.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that easy to be mobile.
Yeah.
That's why he went back the next morning to the same spot. Because, they took the time to flare the hole out on the bottom and get it bigger on the bottom than on the top. Because you were going to, fish in that hole for days. And, so that's how they did it back then.
Right. Now, how did that form into clam? How did the original fish house that you had form into clam?
Well, then I was watching a television show with my wife one day, fishing shows, of course, with Al Linder, and a Gadabout Gaddis was the guy's name. He was a guide from the East Coast, and an elderly guy. And Al asked him when he was going to retire, and he looked at Al and he said, "Al, I'm not doing anything I care to retire from." And I looked at my wife and I said, "I'm going to make my living in the fishing industry." And I started doing, the start was in-home fishing seminars, kind of like the ladies do their Tupperware parties.
Oh, yeah.
We did a fishing, you would have this at your house and you'd bring your friends in, and then I'd come and I had a slide presentation I did, and it was Skyline graphite rods. Them were the first graphite rods, and Zebco Cardinal throw reels. Spinner baits were new then. We'd talk about helicoptering a spinner bait down a weed line. Lindy rigs, we would show them how to tie their own Lindy rigs. And, I did that for a few years, and it really helped getting my, be able to speak in front of a crowd then, getting that seminar done.
Yeah.
And that, like a lot of underfunded companies, gave up, so, I tried selling some tackle for somebody else, and then finally I realized that with ice fishing that, I know more about, being from the North Country and having a dad like that, and I convinced my wife that she's going to sow these fish houses. That was probably the hard part. And the first year she sold 5. And we weren't real smart in this. We weren't in that business, and she sold the entire conduit in. So there was just a tremendous amount of sewing.
Yeah.
And first year she sold 5. The next year she sold 20, and the third year she sold 80, and then she wasn't sewing no more. But I was able to go out and get a canvas shop to build them then, and we kept growing at a very slow pace, and eventually I had to borrow some money to add on to my house and my garage to get more space, and I did that. It was 18% interest back in them days, so.
Oh, wow.
And, a $15,000 loan, you paid interest for 5 years, and then you still owed $15,000. But luckily, the business checking account had enough money to pay the bill, and so I had to grow some more. And Denny Clark actually started Clam, and that was the first plastic-based fish house that you set up and pulled the canvas over the top. And I was selling a fish trap, and ice fishing shows started, and Denny and I became friends, and and then US Lawn was called. They were just sewing lawn bags for Sears and Murray. Now this is before anything was going to China. They were sewing lawn bags in a sewing plant that they had in South Dakota, and had nothing going on in the winter, and Denny had nothing going on in the summer, so that's how they got together. And then I licensed USL to manufacture and market my products. And things were going along well, and then the owner of USL passed away. Dave Bennett was his name. So his wife was selling off these little things, and And Dave Osborne, the current owner of Clam, purchased the fish house division out of USL, and because him and Denny Clark were friends from, they rented a cabin together on a lake in the summertime. They didn't run them together. They were next door neighbors, so they sat by the same fire. Let's put it that way. And I kind of went along with that, and now we've got somebody that's interested in growing the sport, and Clam has done a tremendous job of growing the sport.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now, are there any of the original shacks still around?
The ones that my wife sold, there's one sitting at Clam.
Oh, really?
And there's another one at the Minnesota Hall of Fame. So there's two of the originals left, which is pretty amazing.
Right.
Right.
Now, when you first came up with or started to do this and your wife sold those first 5, did you ever imagine that it would grow to what it is today?
Well, I certainly imagined it was going to grow, but no, not to. It's the whole industry that's growing.
Right.
I've seen myself selling more fish houses, but when I started, I had there was nobody using sonar yet. I started using my green box, and I would stick it in my hole in the bigger fish house that I had then, and watch it. If a fish came through, I could figure out how far down it was, and then I'd guess with arm lengths to check the depth or to get to the depth. And then the rep of my fish house, my rep also rep vexilar, or it was Cytex at the time. So that's how I got my first FL8. And just by chance one time I hung the transducer in the hole, and there was my jig went down. I could see my jig and I could see this fish. And I knew that was a major breakthrough in ice fishing when we could do that now.
Oh, yeah.
And so then I had to build the first wooden box that we built to house your portable unit in, or a unit that wasn't portable. And had a little ball and socket. You could move it around until you seen your hook. Then we figured out that it had to be level. Then we added a leveling bubble to the top of the transducer. Another kind of a breakthrough. And now you got to do is level the bubble. Now when you drop it down, you can see your hook. Then vexilar came out with the ice deucer. That, we should probably go backtrack a little bit. It was Cytex, then it was Micronar, then it was Hondex, and then Honda Electronics decided to pull out of the United States because they were doing well, but the ice fishing market was going, and vexilar was able to secure the rights to market the Honda Electronics in the United States. And, I guess the rest is history. They sell a lot of them.
Now, when you first figured out, like, holy smokes, I can see my jig on that, how hesitant were you to show the whole world? Or was that never even a question? You were going to go and show everybody?
Yeah, I was going to go show everybody. Wanted them, look at this. I mean, that's how I sold my fish houses to it.
Right.
I walked around out on where people were fishing, pulling my little one-man fish house behind me, and I would set my vexilar in the hole, and or my Cytex at that time, and show them that there's your hook down there, and you got a sinker up on your line. Then I would say, look, there's a fish over here, and I'd, pull the line up and put on fresh Euro larvae, the colored maggots on their hook that I would early with them too, and then they'd catch that fish, and then I would move on to the next guy. That's how it.
I'll be like, whoa, where are you going? Come back here. Let me see that for a little bit longer.
And there were people in them days that were heading right to the store, to get them. And another nice thing about that is that at that part, our bait and tackle stores were selling crappie minnows, a few waxworms and a jiggle stick. It wasn't much money in ice fishing, but then after, I came along, and now we got a fish house, and we're going to sell you a sonar, and we're going to sell you clothing. And at the beginning, it was the bait and tackle stores that started that. The mass merchants were reluctant to get involved, so it gave them something in the wintertime, and I'm sure it helped a lot of them, make some money in the winter and stay in business.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, what was it like the first time that you actually saw a fish come up to your jig? You know, you could see your jig. The first time you actually saw a fish come up, did you know instantly, like, holy smokes, that's what that is?
Oh yeah, because I watched it. I just didn't have my jig, but I could see the fish come in, and I would see it rushing, and I know it was coming towards my jig then, even though I couldn't see it. And then you'd get ready and feel the bite, set the hook, and then once we got it so we could see it, it just made it easier and quicker to get it to the fish.
Right.
Right. Now, a couple weeks ago when we talked to you at the Ice Institute, you told us about creating the first modern ice fishing rod by going to Thorne Brothers and taking some of their broken rods that they had laying around. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with that idea and what all went into that.
Well, it was, actually, the first was the Bass Pro Shop in Minneapolis, or Blaine is where it was. Now it's not. It wasn't a Bass Pro Shop like the ones that are out there now. It's just a store that had the name, and you could get your mail order stuff through them. And the owner of that store, I can walk it, and it was blocks from my house, so I was in and out of there a lot. And he was sitting on the floor with this big pile of broken rods, and he was cutting the guides off of them, and he was just going to sell the guides in his store. So he probably got them for nothing or very little if he's just going to sell the guides off these broken rods. So I'm sitting there looking at this pile of rods, and I pick one of the rods up and I kind of bent it. And I went, I bet I could make a nice ice rod out of this. So I think I had to pay him $5 for the blank now. So this worthless rod was suddenly worth $5. So I took it home and I worked at American Linen. And we washed a lot of tablecloths from restaurants. And in them tablecloths, wine corks would come in that they pulled out of the bottles. And I was a maintenance engineer, so I had access to the maintenance shop and the tools. So I chucked them up in the lathe, and I drilled a hole through them. And I took these wine corks in and slid them on this rod and glued them together with some glue. And boy, this thing weighed nothing. Nobody had ever felt a rod that weighed so little. A couple of wine corks and a graphite blank. But I, wasn't that good at it. It was pretty crude. So that's when I went to Thorne Brothers, which was my reps. It was a little deck above the Minn Kota dealership or repair center with a little deck up there, and that's where Thorne Brothers was building graphite fly rods and muskie rods was their two specialties, custom made. And they made some ice rods for me then, and I took them to the ski show, it was called then, but the St. Paul Ice Show is what happened since then. And handed these to people, and they never felt anything so light before. And I changed the price on them every few minutes or every half an hour to see what people are willing to pay for one. And they dropped them like a hot potato at $20, but at $15, they'd say, "Wow, these are pretty nice." And when Thorne Brothers realized they could get $15 for their broken rod blanks and a few pieces of cork, they started building rods. And they still build rods to this day, but it's progressed. Amazing how far ice rods have came.
Now, at that point in time, like, what was your average open water price? Open water rod price?
Well, you see, that's when graphites first came about. The Skyline graphites was about the same time. Remember, I talked about them earlier.
Yep.
So that kind of rods were, $40, $40 to $60 was a quality graphite summer rod then.
Okay.
So $20 for a winter rod sounded like a lot of money when they were 99 cents, but they were graphite.
Right.
Now, how were you attaching your reels to the rods then?
Oh, back in them days with electrical tape, almost the same way I do it now.
Yep.
That's still one of the best ways to do it, is get rid of all the rod holding devices on there and just hold right under the cork.
Right.
But they are making better and better reel seats now. That's come a long ways too.
Right. Now, was there spinning rods then, or was that all like the Zebco
No, that were spinning rods that we started with there.
Okay.
You know, was the Zebco underslung the 33, I think it was called, or 144. Excuse me.
Okay.
That was that little underslung reel with a trigger on it,
Yep.
and that was the first reel I bought and mounted on there, thinking I had to have this tiny little reel because I wanted to keep it light. You know, and I've definitely learned as time goes on that I want a little bigger spinning reel with a larger arbor spool on it. Makes the reel just function better with a little larger spool on it. You can set the drag better.
Yep.
And
Now, Dave, you're known as, an ice fisherman. Everybody knows you as an ice fisherman, but you also do quite a bit of open water fishing, correct?
well, probably more than ice fishing if you really think about it. The other things I have to do in the winter times, like drive to South Dakota or Iowa or wherever it may be, I don't have to do that in the summer. So I spend a lot of time in the summer on the water.
Now, where do you mainly fish up there?
Well, I guess I'll give you how I operate. You know, I ice fish until there isn't ice anymore in northern Minnesota, so that gets you to the middle of April.
All right.
And so now I fish lakes. You know, the Minnesota Walleye Opener is the second weekend in May. So I haven't got a lot of time for honeydews from the last ice till the opener. So I do the best I can on that. And then I fish lakes from opener until the 4th of July. You know, the weed lines are getting developed. Lakes are just a lot of fish caught in lakes in May and June. And then when the 4th of July comes, all the people come to the lake. All the people have summer homes and stuff. The lakes fill up with recreational things. And I leave the lake then and start fishing the Mississippi River, which is, my house is on the river. And I fish the river until, well, I usually put the boat away, and a couple days later I head up ice fishing. So I put the boat away now.
Now, Craig Euler told me that I had to ask you about the Holy Boat. Tell us about the Holy Boat.
Well, I took a 18-foot John boat, a G3, and I cut two 7-inch holes in the floor, and then you got to put a stand pipe there so that the water doesn't run into the boat. It will come up as high as it is on the outside. And I got my vexilar mounted right there, and so I can sit on my boat seat and fish through the hole in the floor like I'm ice fishing. In fact, a few years ago, before the St. Paul Ice Show, there wasn't any ice, so I took my John boat there and I set my fish house up on the deck and flipped it over the hole, so they had me catching a fish out through the hole with snowflakes coming down, and then when you panned over, the water was open.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Now, what do you prefer? You said you do more open water fishing. Do you still prefer ice more?
I really enjoyed what I just did the last couple of days, is get out there on this early ice and catch these big panfish. They're down there, they're up off the bottom. I caught them in deeper water, so your sonar really works well when you're fishing something that's 3 feet off the bottom and 30 feet of water. It's not too hard to figure out what the fish is. And catching these, like a lot of these spots, you gotta be there first, because it doesn't take long if people come and the fish go home in buckets.
You're right.
And we let them all go, all the big ones anyway. And I'm confident that when you let them go, you go back there the next day, you can catch that same fish over again.
Right.
Might even catch them in the next hour. And so you catch a lot of big ones, but then as soon as the crowds show up, pretty soon, geez, they're just not biting anymore. Well, that's because they're gone.
Right.
What's it like when you go out fishing? Do a lot of, if people see you out there, do they follow you around, or do they kind of give you your distance?
A lot of the spots I'm fishing are not overpopulated, because I know where these spots are. But no, I'm probably more aggressive out there than the people coming to me. I go to them and talk about fishing, and if I can help them catch a fish, I will. I just enjoy people and being out there on the ice and enjoying the day. trying to make things fun.
Right. Because at the end, that's what it's all about, is just being out there and having fun.
Yeah, I enjoy being out in the cold and not being cold. There's no such thing as cold. It's just inadequate clothing.
That's right.
The clothing that's available to us now, the clam suits, the rise suit especially that I'm wearing now, that's waterproof, floats you if you fell through the ice, and amazingly warm and comfortable. And I've been wore it all day yesterday, and I was just as comfy out on the ice. The trickiest thing to keep cold, we're getting cold, is your hands. I don't want to really fish with gloves on if I can help it. And I could sit in my fish house and turn the heater on, but I enjoy being outside in the weather.
Yeah, I'm a little bit the same way. Scott over here, he's pretty quick to flip that house over and turn on his heater a lot of the time.
That's because I'm catching fish, and I don't want you to know.
That's one of the pluses of the fish trap, is that you do get that people aren't following you around because they don't know you're catching anything.
That's right.
Now, Dave, you mentioned the rise suit. If you were to be honest with us right now, how many times have you fell through the ice?
0.
Really?
Wow.
I've not ever fallen through the ice.
That's awesome.
I might have, getting off the ice late in the spring and, broke through right next to shore as you're trying to get off.
Dropped a boot in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've never been wet.
Cool.
Well, let's keep it that way.
I don't plan on it.
Now, Dave, before we let you go, we're just going to kind of rapid fire a couple questions at you. First off, do you have any bucket list fish that you have left to catch?
Bucket list fish that I want to catch, through the ice?
Yeah, anything.
I've never caught a big sturgeon yet, so I think I'm going to have to put that on my list to go pursue soon. And I guess one other bucket list, I need to go up to Lake Superior, which is close to home for me, and catch a walleye. It's kind of funny that the closest lake to me is the only Great Lake I haven't caught walleyes in.
Oh, wow.
Because when I went up to Lake Superior, it was always to go trout fishing. And, now suddenly I got to go catch a walleye. So maybe I'll get that done this year, too.
Perfect.
Now, Scott and I, when we're out on the ice, like you said, it's all about having fun and enjoying time with friends and everything like that. And we like to eat out on the ice a lot of the times. What would be your favorite food that you'd have along when you're out there fishing?
I've got a beef sticks. That's always something good to have in your pocket when you're out there.
Oh, for sure.
I have some water along. The tricky thing in the wintertime is to keep things from freezing. Something that some inventor out there has to come up with. He's got to come up with a warmer, not a cooler. And, I definitely think there's a market for that, to keep your bait from freezing and your sandwiches and your, whatever you have along. But that's what I find works well for me, is some beef sticks, maybe some cheese, something I can keep on the inside pocket and keep it from freezing.
Right. Now, Dave, you have a lot of people that look up to you in the fishing industry. Who are some of the guys or ladies who you look up to?
Well, I've always had Ellender has obviously always been someone that made it in the fishing industry, and him and his brother Ron, which I know them guys quite well. They drew me my blueprint and what I needed to do to make this ice fishing thing happen. I just had to follow it. And that's kind of what I did, is travel the country, because that's what they did, is they traveled and talked to writers and sports people across the country and caught fish, and they all wrote about them, and that's exactly the same thing I did. I ice fished from Maine to Montana, and seen and talked to a lot of people doing that. So he's pretty high on my list.
Right.
Yeah, we did a contest earlier this year. We did the Mount Rushmore of of fishing, and you and Al were both on there. So,
all right, good.
Besides fishing, we talk about fishing on here and everything like that. Do you have any other hobbies that you enjoy to do?
Play cards. I was playing cribbage with my wife when you called, and I've got my neighbors are over right now, and I'm going to cook up some bluegills that I caught yesterday, and we're going to play some more cribbage. So,
well, who's winning?
Games in general, but cards are my most. I'd like to do the most.
Who was winning, you or your wife?
That was a game of peace.
That's a good answer.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to hold you from the bluegill supper and playing cards, so we'll give you one more question. Dave, if you could look back on your storied career, what is the one accomplishment that you think stands out?
Well, that I changed the way people ice fish. You know, the history of the sport has had nothing to do with mobility. You know, it was, you know, and that's what I got people out of their shacks and moving around and looking at ice fishing more like it was summer fishing. And, I love to see people buzzing around on the ice, moving around from spot to spot, because I know I started all that.
Yeah, that is very cool. Well, Dave, we really appreciate it. It's a privilege and an honor to sit here and talk to you. This is our 1-year anniversary show, and if you would have told me a year ago that we'd be sitting here talking to you, I wouldn't have believed it. So it's definitely an honor.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, Matt and Scott, you do a good job and ask some good questions, and it was fun talking with you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully we can get you on again sometime. Thanks a lot, Dave.
All right. Okay, goodbye.
See ya. There he goes, the godfather of ice fishing, Dave Genz.
Wow.
Dave Genz.
That's awesome. It's just so cool that he takes time out of his day to sit down and chat with us. We really appreciate that.
And we got to give a big thanks to Craig Euler. Craig
Yep.
Euler kind of set that one up for us, and Craig Euler's been absolutely top-notch since the beginning of this podcast. Like I said, a year ago, I would have never possibly imagined that we would have been able to talk with all the people that we have, and especially Dave Genz. This podcast started off just me and Matt, just two guys that were like, hey, we talk about fishing all the time. Let's record it and see if anyone actually wants to listen to us.
Right.
And, every single week we kick out an episode, and every single week we keep trending a little bit higher. I truly want to thank every single person that has ever logged on and listened to one of our episodes. We're nothing special, guys. We're just two regular dudes sitting in my basement next to my laptop and some Amazon equipment.
And talking fishing.
And
you sit there and say you're nothing special. Sometimes, I think I am.
well, you are.
My mom always told me I was special.
Yeah, I believe that. You were right, Brenda. No, I did just truly, guys, I can't even begin to thank all you guys enough. I mean, it is absolutely crazy, the doors that this has opened up. Last week, I was sitting there texting with two people that have fished the Bassmaster Classic. Greg Vance and Troy Dede, both past guests on here. And, I kind of stopped and I thought, holy moly, I'm really texting these people. I'm texting professional fishermen, and not just those two, other people, we've sent out a lot of messages, and we've been turned down a couple times for interviews, and, people just don't message us back, whatever. But, God, I just can't even believe all the people that we've had on this show in a short amount of time, and the fact that it just keeps growing.
Yeah, it is, and we thank all of you guys for that, and really look forward to seeing what's in the future, really.
Right. You remember when we first started this whole entire deal? I think me and you, we originally started, and it was going to be outdoor chat with Scott and Matt.
That's right.
And I said to Matt, I'm like, granted, Matt and his dog Finley do a lot of upland hunting, but and we both, do some deer hunting, we do some goose hunting, but I was like, let's just kind of key this in on fishing. And so we changed it to the Midwest Angler Podcast, and I truly believe that was one of our better decisions to do. Not that the hunting wouldn't have been a whole lot of fun, because there are some awesome people in the hunting industry too, but yeah, I don't know. It all started, and I think we both thought, man, if we could get 25 listens an episode, wouldn't that be crazy?
When we hit 100, we were just like, whoa!
Yeah, and like I said, that's quadrupled and then some. I mean, we just keep on trending higher. Especially want to give a shout out to Jim Gerard, who gave us 4 free Cold Snap Redline Series rods to give away here. That was absolutely amazing.
That was very nice of him.
Huge for our podcast, huge for our Facebook page. I don't know, somehow we must have weaseled into the best group in all of fishing, and we've just got a lot of killer cool dudes that have gone to bat for us, and
Well,
you
they
know,
always say, surround yourself with good people, and that's what we try to do, is surround ourselves with good people. So.
right. I thought you were going to say that's what they're trying to do.
Well, a little bit of that too. They know a quality product when they hear one.
Oh man,
They don't see us anymore, but they still hear us.
Right.
So I think that's helped us too a lot. Is that we've went away from videotaping.
well, they sound bad and they're ugly.
Now we just sound bad. We could be the best looking guys around.
Yeah, well, I don't think we are.
Well, neither do I. But hey, again, my mom says that I am.
Right. No. Yep. Again, I'll say thank you. I could say thank you 500,000 times, and whatever probably wouldn't be enough. But thank you guys all for tuning in.
I'm here.
We'll see what next week brings. I don't know who we got coming down the pipe. Honestly, we've been setting up this Dave Genz deal for like 10 days, and I don't know. That's all I could really think about, to tell you the truth.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we've been texting each other back and forth a lot, and the cool thing about Dave is that he's generational.
Oh, absolutely.
The older guys know who he is. The middle-aged guys know who he is. The guys our age know who he is. The younger generation knows who he is. I mean,
Right.
Like you said, he's the Godfather of Ice Fishing, and to have him on our 1-year anniversary, that's pretty awesome.
Right. I got his cell phone number in my phone.
Right. He might change it now, though.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. No. Well, like I said, we appreciate it, everybody. With that, we are going to end episode 49, end the 1-year anniversary show, and we will see you guys. God dang it. Unbelievable. Matt found out that he can put his cell phone up next to the microphone. So, all right, guys. This every single episode just goes off the rails at the end.
You better get ready. You better catch me.
Yeah. We're out of here. See ya.